So let's go back to, I mean, it was one of the first things you guys made, right, as Generator. It was, a lot of people don't know the history behind Reactor. Was it the first?
It is what the company was grounded upon. It's the foundation of Native Instruments. Actually, the idea behind it was our founder, Stefan Schmidt. He was an electronic musician himself, a synthesizer player. And he got really fed up with the limitations of the synthesizers in the 90s. And he and a friend, they could already foresee the potential of the computer, that it would become powerful enough to do real-time audio. So they started in the backyard of Berlin-Kreuzberg, in some random backyard. They started to test some ideas regarding real-time audio, which then eventually became our first product, which was Generator. And the idea was that basically you are not limited by any restrictions anymore or by any design decisions that somebody else has taken, but you could actually design the instruments and sounds yourself to really personalize it in the best way that you can, and basically let your creativity flow. And that's pretty much what we did in the first years before we then started to maneuver out into other areas of building other instruments and stuff.
And Richard, you have been using Generator from the start, right?
Yeah, actually, I've known Mate for a long time. Probably when we meet, 99 maybe, or somewhere around
pretty much very early in the game, yeah.
Very early, so I was there almost at the beginning. And I was actually using Generator a lot. When it first came out, I've always been a person that's like modular environments. I use Max, I use Kima, Pure Data, any of these environments that are kind of have like modular objects that you can connect together to create these sort of environments. And I came from a modular background. My first synthesizer was an ARP 2600 that I still have.
Not a bad start.
Yeah, I got it when I was 16, and long story short, but yeah, so I came from that background. I came from basically taking different blocks and connecting them to create these bigger patches, these bigger things, and it really sort of shaped the way that I do sound design and how I understood how to build, shaping envelopes and modulation and timbres and stuff like that. So when Generator came out, I was like, oh, this is really cool. This is an environment that's similar to these other environments I'm already using, but it had sort of a different sound quality. So I was actually doing my shows on I think it was a 66 megahertz computer at the time, or it was either
like
60 or 80 megahertz, really thick laptop. I would show up to the shows, and I had friends of mine. My friend Jeff, who's at Apple, he saw me playing in San Francisco. He's like, "What is that?" And I go, "It's Generator." And he's like, "That is crazy." So I had this drum sequencing thing live, and I was playing live shows with it. I had 2 laptops, and because I was just so into it, I was like, "Oh, this is so cool." And what I really liked was just the detail. It's just, you can get really good, even back then. Generator was capable of, and even now, you can just get really detailed, awesome sounds with it. So that's what really drew me, is the sound quality and the control.
Were you creating your own?
Those were my own patches.
I mean, I guess at this point, was there a user library at this point?
There wasn't really anything at the time. There was a couple things that were...
There was a mailing list, but just for those who know.
Yeah, so you really had to build your own stuff, but that's what I like. I like going in and just building my own things, because the things I want to do aren't typically normal things that most people want to do for typical audio applications. I'm always usually presented with a problem that I have to solve. So I have to usually build something that will build an output. I actually used Reactor. I can't say the car company, but I actually designed the electric sounds of an electric car recently using Reactor.
Really?
Yes. I can't say I have a contract with them, but so it's...
Listen out.
Yeah, so I can say it here, but I can't say the manufacturer's name. But yeah, I've worked with them. I'm actually working with another car company right now in the States, designing another car sound, the actual engine EV sounds. So I did the modeling in this environment called PhiMod, which is basically like a video game engine where you can do driving simulation stuff on offload. So I used that model, and then I rebuilt something in Reactor that would be able to allow me to have pitch control and stuff. And yeah, it was pretty. So you can use it for lots of different stuff. Yeah. I love environments like that where you can apply it. you have a problem or you want to do something in the studio. If you don't have it, you can just make it.
Yeah, and Daniel, obviously you've got a rich synth history. Do you remember when you came into Reactor and when you stumbled on it?
Yeah, I remember actually quite well because I saw Reactor, I guess, from the beginning, but I didn't really use it until Reactor 3, when it became kind of stable on the Mac, because that's what I was using, and very quickly got into it. I've never really built my own modules. I'm not that kind of. I don't have that expertise, but I've modified the modules, but I never built anything from scratch. But I've used them, especially at various phases. Certainly for the first few years that Reactor, we used it a lot in the productions I was working on.
In the very early days, we were recruiting a lot of our staff through the user library. I mean, really, because they were uploading the stuff first, and then it's like, oh my God, who did this? And then really, and it's been really amazing how the user library continued to develop, even though the platform in itself was, as I said, there wasn't a major release almost like in 10 years. So it's really incredible how loyal and still inspired so many people are, and also how much different possibilities they find to actually build with Reactor. Because that's the thing, even though there may have not been a major release for such a long time, that system already is so deep. If you really know what you want to do, you can do so much stuff with it. And what we were really hoping for was with the release of blocks that there's going to be a new stream of uploads, and that it's actually done by different people, because it's much easier to actually get into the system now and build your own basically modules and contribute them to the library. And it has really worked. I mean, I was just recently on vacation, and I was not really very much involved in the native business at that point in time, but I was checking the user library almost on a daily level.
Not checking your emails, but checking the library.
There was always something new in there, a few things and stuff, and I was super happy about it. And it's really, it's continuing. I mean, we have our lineup of things that we want to do, and there's more stuff on the way, but I'm super proud that just having those modules that we ship now with it has really turned the fire again for some people to really start contributing, and there is a new spirit within the community now that we have enabled with blocks, and that's amazing.
I mean, just a good example of that is there's a band on Mute called Liars, who historically have been more guitar, drums, bass oriented. And they decided they wanted to make an electronic record, and they had really no experience whatsoever with synthesis. And I said, try Reactor, and the way because they were coming from a completely different space from a person who's in, the way they used it was like, I was blown away. It was really, to me, it was like something I would never have done. It was just really interesting the way they used it, and they really got into it quite heavily,
Okay.
So, yeah.
So it has helped them to actually turn their electronic vision into reality. Yeah.
Yeah, and and I don't know how. Yeah, I think their vision was we want to make an electronic record, and then I think the vision grows as the vision changes and grows as you learn the technology. I think, oh wow, you can do that. I didn't, that sort of thing.
Got it.
I mean, what's next for Reactor? Obviously, I could see it being driven by the user library again, because blocks is going to inspire so many people, and you guys are going to be like, wow.
I mean, there's very different levels to Reactor. We are really, I think already with Reactor 6, we've worked quite a bit on the educational side. We've even partnered up with some new, actually with a service called Cadency, which is coming out from CalArts, who are teaching, using Reactor to teach sound synthesis. And we will explore more of that to just really make basically the learnability better of the system in itself. The whole blocks thing, to be honest with you, this is just a starting point. We have a whole lineup of things waiting to be rolled out throughout the next soon future and the next years. Then the whole core level we continue to develop. We brought some new technology with Reactor 6 into the game to work more on sample-based instruments and other stuff. That is going to continue. Obviously, we are continuing with the instrument developments for Reactor. So all of these things are happening in parallel. But for us, really, right now, it was about getting this out and also getting more inspiration into the game again, coming from the outside. I mean, we got super inspired internally again around taking this really to the next level, and even also agreeing in between each other how to really make the accessibility easier, because everybody was doing it in their own ways, and now really there is a consensus in between us how to go further with it. But as you can see, it's just some basic stuff that we've put in there. Obviously, we have a lot of different synthesis types and ways how to continue with this, and we will put quite some emphasis on also not just doing things for the factory library, but also actually for the user library, and also stuff coming from NI. I mean, there is some modifications happening from classic ensembles that some of our classic developers are basically remodeling them to make them part of the system, which I'm very excited about. Really some classic...
That sounds good. I'm excited.
Yeah. Some classic noise machines. But we haven't really been thinking about Reactor 7 because, I mean, the backlog of stuff that we want to do I think goes rather until Reactor 9 or Reactor 10. It's just going to be more how to structure this. But for sure, also making it play better with other systems, be it with our own stuff or also with stuff by other vendors, be it software or hardware, is super important to us, because we know that the people who are really interested in this, they don't want to be restricted to just one way of using it. It's an open platform, and it's supposed to be really as flexible and compatible as possible. So we will be working on that as well. And I think everything else I cannot talk about.
Richard, where would you like to see Reactor go next?
As far as new things, I'm really happy where things are at right now. And I've always been able to get what I've wanted out of Reactor. It's not one of those things like, I wish it had this. I would just make it, and it would just. It's never been one of those, and that's why I love it so much, because I'm often always faced with an audio problem or some situation where I have to come up with something that's not exactly like a normal thing, So I always have to really think about it. So I just build it, and that's what's so great, is that you can just make whatever you need to accomplish the task at hand. So it's exceeded my expectations every time. And like I said, the number one thing for me is the sound quality. I would always go back to Reactor. When I was first using Max, the one thing I didn't like about Max was the thin, kind of weird sound that it had, especially in the early versions of 2.5, like 3, 5, and to 4. It's different now. 6, 7's a whole different story, but I would kind of always go back to Reactor to build my synthesizers and stuff, because I just didn't like the sound. It just didn't have a full, rich, bodied sound that Reactor has. It has this very nice, rich, I don't even know how to describe it.
I mean, that's the stuff where we really spend a lot of time, and also where we do a lot of research throughout the years. We know it's not the most. I mean, Max MSP and a lot of these other systems, they are much more flexible. You can do much more installational work or control all sorts of things with it. I mean, Reactor is much more around synthesis, but therefore we are much more also focused regarding the sound quality. And as I said, we threw all of our know-how, or at least very substantial part of that, into this because, we really believe in that sound does make a difference. And I think everyone should, this is already kind of complex stuff where there is a lot of stuff going on. But you should just do stuff with one oscillator and a filter and maybe an envelope and really just some basic stuff. Make some basic bass patches, acid machines, or whatsoever, and just play around with it. Just use a couple of controllers and really make it feel alive. And you will really, if you have a proper system, you will hear the quality of just basic elements. And I think even the most basic things can suddenly inspire you again, because you can feel the love that has been put into these core blocks that basically are generating the sound.
Yeah. And Daniel, where would you like to see Reactor go?
Well, I mean, as Richard said, I think it's in a great place now. I think it's really more for me now, as I'm not a builder, it's more about what the users are going to, what the user library is going to give us, and I'm sure there's going to be some amazing stuff. I haven't even looked on there yet, but I guess
a lot.
I bet there's already a load of stuff. I'm sure.
Yeah, it's endless. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really exciting, and the idea, this kind of the generosity of those people who make
Absolutely.
things. It's just, I find it really quite moving actually that, this kind of, where everybody's in such a commercial world now and trying to monetize everything, and they're just doing it for the love of it and sharing it. I think that's a great thing.
All right, nice one. Please give it up for Mate, Daniel, and Richard.
Thanks for coming out.